So Betty, let's take a trip down the moral persuasion route for a
Sure.
moment.
Yeah.
Because my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, you concede that the moral persuasion studies are not, it's not like you're making the claim, this is the way, these are really working, all this
No.
work, but you just haven't given up on them because one reason you think they haven't been adequately studied, but are there other reasons as well? Even though
Yes.
we may not have the data, uh, do you think there are effective strategies that maybe haven't been tried yet?
So I think there are effective strategies that haven't been studied as much yet. I also think we do have data. So there are lots of historical examples of large numbers of people being convinced to reduce animal consumption. So, for example, the provinces of Rajasthan and Gujarat in India, 60 to 80% of the population there is vegetarian. In Japan, most animal products were illegal for over 1,000 years before the Meiji Restoration. There are many major
Is
world
that true?
religions.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever
ma-
heard that.
many meat
Wow.
products, because of the Buddhist government there, were illegal for hundreds of years. And there are major world religions, right? So Hinduism, many are vegetarian, Buddhism, Jainism, Manichaeism was a major world religion for like over 1,000 years, and they promoted vegetarianism. There are many smaller religions. I think there are just tons of historical examples of large numbers of people being convinced to reduce animal consumption. There are also other things. There are parallels we can look at with other behaviors, right? Where it maybe is very hard to convince people to reduce alcohol consumption, right? But there are still parts of the world where alcohol consumption is very rare or illegal, right? There have been times in history where there was like massive upheaval in terms of how people live their daily lives and their worldviews and their values. It is extremely hard to do that, and I think that's what these RCTs show, is that this is a hard problem. Um, but there are many hard problems that have been solved before to some extent. And I think it speaks more to the level of challenge that we're facing and the level of intensity and resolve that is required than, I think if we just look at this and we say, well, it doesn't work, so we shouldn't try. Well, this is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You make
Hmm.
me feel like such a hater, Benny. This is such a great little interlude. Yeah, I know I agree with all that. The only thing I'd add is that
Mhm.
it's also partly about the kinds of designs we looked at. Randomized control trials are good at looking at very concrete things like how much meat did you eat on the Tuesday following. They're really not
Mhm.
good at looking, it's much harder to design a study that looks at like, did you watch the movie Babe? Or are you James Cromwell, who was in the movie Babe and then became a vegan and then became an activist? That's
And then
like kind of
glued yourself to a few counters and saved 75 cents on soy milk at Starbucks, which I am grateful for. I
wait,
just
did
wanted to
James
let
Yeah,
you know.
Cromwell,
and
was
I
he
just
involved
want
in
to
the
make
soy milk thing?
Yeah.
Huh.
Wasn't he? Am
I
I
didn't know that.
imagining that?
oh yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he glued his hand to the counter
The counter.
and he got a lot
Yeah.
of press. Yeah.
I
Good
just
old he's a great guy.
He's a great guy. Starbucks recently eliminated the upcharge for plant-based
I
Yes.
milk.
know. I
Yeah.
Okay.
know.
Can I just have a moment? Another digression.
Yeah.
My birthday was yesterday as we're recording this, and I missed my happy birthday Starbucks comp.
Oh, you're
Do you
right.
know how sad I am right
And there's
now
not a
about
window. It's like the day
No,
of.
it's on
Uh,
your birthday.
Oh,
All right,
man.
I know.
can we go back to
Yes.
the
No.
topic at hand? Because Benny,
Yes.
I mean, I, I want to
Testing.
go
No.
deeper into this, and from
Sure.
what I understand, uh, you like the terms values or worldview change
Yeah.
to behavior change, which is the way we're usually looking at it. And can you drill down a bit on what that means?
Yeah.
And can we talk a little bit, can we get a little bit into, I hadn't planned on doing this until later in the interview, but it's the topic I'm most interested in. Sorry, Seth. Um, but religion, like I really would like to, because almost everything you just mentioned had to do with religion of some sort.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a really fascinating topic if we're talking about taking this more, not drilling down into the details view of change, but broad worldview kind of view of change. So all right, I've talked enough. Tell us a little bit about what is the difference between a behavior change and a worldview change,
Yeah.
and what the worldview change is that you're looking for.
Sure. So I think with a lot of these RCTs that we're looking at, what they do is they say, well, we tried one specific intervention. We showed this person a video, we handed them a brochure, we had a conversation with them, And then we measured whether their animal consumption reduced over a certain period of time after that. That is a measure of behavior change, right? I'm going to make the claim, and this is, I think, a controversial claim, that convincing more people to go vegan is much, much more important than convincing a large number of people to marginally reduce their consumption. So I think you will often hear people say, well, if you convince 100 people to reduce their consumption by 5%, that's the same thing as convincing 10 people to reduce by 100%. And so, it's easier to convince one person to reduce by 5%. So you would think that if we just focus on those 5% reductions, that should be the main focus. I think, in fact, you want to focus on getting more people to go vegan, which does not just mean not eating meat or eating animal products. It means rejecting the exploitation of animals and believing that animals matter. And that takes a lot more than convincing someone to just reduce their consumption, right? So it's much more similar. So some of these studies, they'll compare going vegan or not going vegan. They'll compare reducing their consumption to, buying an electric car or recycling or something. And there are studies that look at, well, if we show someone a video, will they start recycling more? And often, yes, that's the case, right? Because it just isn't that hard to recycle, right? And if you start recycling more, you don't get a ton of people getting all offended because you're like doing this very personal thing very differently 3 times a day, right? But with veganism, it is like that. Like if you go vegan, even if you're not trying to convince people at all, people will think you're weird and make fun of you and all this stuff. And Claire Mann has written a lot about the psychology of being vegan, right? And so, I'm not trying to say that veganism is like a religion in all senses, but in the sense that it impacts your worldview as a whole and your daily life and how you interact with the rest of society is much more like radically changing your entire worldview and outlook on life than just, buying an electric car. And I think for this reason, it's also much more important. So what I was originally saying was it's important to be convincing more people to go vegan, because if someone goes vegan, then they will also go and try to convince more people to do so. And so you have much more potential for like exponential growth in the movement than if you just convince a bunch of people to marginally reduce their consumption. And that's not really a visible behavior change. That doesn't influence anyone else. But if you convince, 2 people to go vegan, and those people both convince 2 more people to go vegan and onwards, you can actually get exponential growth in the number of people that support this. And that's really what we need if we want the level of change that is needed in the long term.
So is it a matter of encouraging the development of like a new moral framework in which animals matter, or just tapping into a moral framework that many people have already adopted, in which somehow they accept that animals matter, but that eating meat doesn't violate that principle?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people on some level recognize that animals matter. Most people, if you show them a video of what happens to the animals that they eat, and you say, is this okay? They're going to say, no, that's obviously not okay. Most people, in fact, if you ask them to watch one of these videos, they will say, no, I don't want to see this, because they already know that it's not okay. And I think that is the only leg up that our movement actually has. So if we talk about choice architecture, if we talk about any of these other interventions to reduce consumption, these are things that the meat industry can also do, and can do at a much larger scale than us, right? Like, of course, McDonald's knows about choice architecture. It knows how to convince people to like eat marginally more chicken. And it's not that hard for them to just start an ad campaign, right? I mean, we've seen alternative proteins just tank in the last couple of years, because it just wasn't that hard for the meat industry to run a bunch of campaigns convincing people that Beyond Burgers are terrible for you, and get everyone to be scared of alternative proteins. The only leg up that our movement has is that we're actually right about this. And a lot of people on some level know that we're right about this. And so we have the ability to appeal to people's like capacity for reasoned choice in their behaviors and their like compassion for others. And that ability to actually make choices, ironically, is the only thing that distinguishes us from animals, right? The meat industry has everything else on their side, right? They can appeal to people's sort of physical desires. They can appeal to people's social conditioning, their traditions that they're sort of robotically following. They can appeal to peer pressure. They can appeal to, lust for power. The only thing that we can actually use that gets us a leg up on all of that is that we have to just want it a lot more than them, and we have to be willing to push a lot harder to grow the movement.